This is my spoiler review on Deadpool and Wolverine. Check out part 1 for my quick spoiler-free review on if you should watch it. 3 is incredible, -3 is garbage, and 0 is Let's get to it. For personal enjoyment, I'll give it a 3 out of 3. I was enthralled with the action. I had too much fun laughing at each inside joke, reference, and at every fourth wall break. This film rewards fans for their investment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Fox films. The more you watched before, the more you'll enjoy watching this now. As a fan who grew up reading comics and was there for all the Marvel movies pre-MCU, I was in on all the jokes and references, more so as a film graduate and cinephile. I knew about the Channing Tatum Gambit movie that never came to be, the fan casting of Henry Cavill as Wolverine, and the comic inaccuracies of Wolverine's height, among others I'll get to later. The whole film was a constant circle jerk, and I was at the center of that circle. Deadpool and Wolverine is a film catered to one demographic, and it caters to them, us, with pop culture references and source material Easter eggs. This type of humor unfortunately only lands if you possess the knowledge of a landing strip. The marketing is also a little misleading. The MCU cameos were much lighter than advertised, and the movie isn't quite Deadpool's introduction to the MCU. It's more so a celebration of the hard work and time put into the Fox films. It was like Fox's version of Infinity War and Endgame, but done without pretending that the previous Fox movies were cinematic masterpieces. I appreciated that self-awareness and willingness to laugh at their failings. It made the film feel more genuine. Speaking of masterpieces, Deadpool and Wolverine is unfortunately not one of them. For film language, I give it a 1 out of 3. A surprising amount of heart was at the center of this, which is very much needed for the eulogy that this film is. And like any funeral, it's catered for the one who died. And if you were attending one for someone you have no relationship with, all those speeches and recalled memories won't hit as hard. Somehow, this film manages to be accessible to new audiences without reducing the enjoyment for recurring fans. It does this by not just having everything be referenced to something else. Just like previous Deadpool films, it has a lot of visual, violent, and crude humor that stands alone too. The visual gags brought some belly-aching laughs alongside a very violent film. Disney did not shy away from the R rating. In fact, it brought some really creative and visceral fight sequences. Every fight between Deadpool and Wolverine was a treat, as was the hundreds of Deadpools versus Deadpool Prime and Wolverine. That entire one-take sequence was well shot and edited. The fight choreography that Ryan, Hugh, the visual effects, and stunt team did together was outstanding, giving very unique fights by banking on the regenerative abilities of the two leads. Full of gore and violent humor, each fight sequence they were in managed to stand out amongst other action films. This conflicts with the poor creativity and the action that the legacy characters had. I expected much more in their one and only fight scene, especially since this was their farewell, or in Gambit's case, a 2-for-1 introduction and farewell. He actually had some cool visuals, but that didn't make up for the messy and disorientating fight sequence that used a lot of flashing lights and shaky cam to compensate for the lack of fight choreography. That being said, the cameos were oddly enjoyable and welcome. They were written into the story rather well, and the script was surprisingly cohesive for a franchise film that juggled multiple characters and integrated different universes into one. But as a film individually, it was rather lackluster. Aside from a few noticeable scenes, everything was rather simple and dull. The cinematography was safe, the set was rather muted, and Deadpool doesn't really grow or change from previous films. And the change that we do see in Wolverine was already explored in Logan. The villain's motivation also felt rushed. Her decision to destroy all other universes felt out of place and written in just to be the final obstacle for our heroes. There are positives that the film accomplished though. The visual effects for the most part was very well done. I think there are only like 2 shots that were a little rubbery, but the rest was really good. The soundtrack and needle drops were very entertaining and evoked the right emotions. And while most of the cinematography and set design weren't the greatest, the one shot with the hundreds of Deadpools and the montage of Wolverine variants were both very well executed. The secondary antagonist and revealed villain Paradox was hilarious. He had a zesty humor to his role that managed to bounce off Deadpool rather well without seeming redundant. The primary antagonist and main villain Cassandra Nova was really well designed. Her invasive powers were gruesome to see, and Emma Corrin ate every scene she was in. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman killed it in their roles. Wolverine was a great foil, the straight man to Deadpool's comedic levity. Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds really loved their characters, and it shows throughout the entirety of the film. Hugh's acting stood out. He brought a welcome passion and heartbreak to the story, which while present in Logan, has a more underlying anger comparatively in this film. Ryan, of course, is the perfect Deadpool, and I'm excited to see what they do next with their characters within the MCU. Rapid fire thoughts. I rewatched both Deadpool films and was surprised at how much heart was in the center of both of them. And while while Deadpool and Wolverine also contains some heart, it's much smaller than the first film's love story. A love story that only worked because of the great chemistry between Ryan and Marana. A lot of heart came from that relationship, as well as the friendships that Deadpool formed during those two films, which made it rather disappointing to see them in only 2 scenes with barely any lines, as opposed to Wolverine, whose story and screen time justify his name being in the title. Hugh Jackman's performance in the car when he finally has enough of Deadpool's antics was stunning. It had a veil of sadness draped over the repressed anger being released. His delivery was outstanding. It was so cute that Lady Deadpool was played by Blake Lively, and that their kids played Kidpool and Babypool. The reveal that Chris Evans was playing Johnny Storm the Human Torch and not Captain America was really well written. They pushed visual reminders of Captain America throughout the beginning of the film, making the reveal all the more effective. His end credit scene was hilarious, but my favorite joke had to be Nice Pool's fourth wall break, with him just saying, "A proposal." It was just so dumb. What was your favorite? Let me know your thoughts on these, ask me questions, tell me your favorite scenes, let's discuss this movie in the comments. Also, tell me what movie you'd like me to review next. In the end, Deadpool and Wolverine will be known as X-Men's No Way Home, a love letter to its failed films of yesteryear, written to the fans who put effort in keeping up with Fox's journey of being the awkward growing stage for superhero movies. Final score is a 2 out of 3. Here are my film recommendations. If this film inspired you to watch for the first time or rewatch a movie that was referenced, here are the good ones: X-Men 2, X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, Logan, and Deadpool 1 and 2. I can't really recommend Fantastic Four because they're not good, but they're campy and enjoyable if you're into that. If you're looking for meta humor with 2 leads who bounce off each other, 21 and 22 Jump Street. Go watch Deadpool and Wolverine yourself to form your own opinion, and I'll see you on my next film review.